Tomorrow marks 30 years since the Oklahoma City bombing, a tragedy that shook the nation and left a lasting mark on countless lives. A truck bomb was detonated at a federal building in downtown Oklahoma City, killing 168 people, including 19 children, in the deadliest homegrown attack on U.S. soil. This weekend, there'll be a remembrance ceremony to honor the lives lost. Among those victims, Fort Smith native Rebecca Needham Anderson, a nurse who rushed to the scene to help. She collapsed and later died rescuing survivors at the blast site. Renota Woodbridge, who graduated from high school in Batesville and earned a bachelor's and master's in civil engineering from the U of A. Wanda Watkins, WJP, had a family ties to Rogers and is buried there. She worked as a civilian for the Army and even spent time at Fort Chaffee before transferring to Oklahoma City. And Mark Bolte, a Bentonville native and a U of A graduate, worked for the Federal Highway Administration and was inside the federal building when the bomb went off. His mother remembers the exact moment when the news reached her.
One of the girls turned around to somebody and she said, "They just blew up the federal building in Oklahoma City," and I just literally froze. They called and said he was missing. Then they called and said they thought they'd found him. And then late that evening they called and said he was missing. And we left for Oklahoma City that night.
All 168 lives will be remembered in a ceremony in Oklahoma City tomorrow morning. Morgan Wrigley will be at that event. You can catch it live tomorrow morning starting at 8:30, live on 5+. Download on your TV and watch for free. Tonight, a judge is considering what the state of Arkansas can and cannot pull out of curriculum it deems indoctrination. 5 News reporter Kayla Davis breaks it all down for us.
Last March, a group of teachers and students from Little Rock Central High filed a lawsuit against the state, claiming Section 16 of the LEARNS Act, titled Indoctrination, violated their First and 14th Amendment. Section 16 requires the Arkansas Department of Education to review policies, materials, and communications to identify and eliminate any content that may promote teaching ideologies such as critical race theory. Nearly 1 year ago, a federal judge placed a preliminary injunction or temporary pause on Section 16 while the legal battle continued. On Thursday, the 8th Circuit Court in St. Louis, Missouri heard oral arguments after Attorney General Tim Griffin's request for the courts to lift that pause on the case. Maya A. Broadjack, the lawyer representing the Little Rock Central teachers and students, argued the pause is necessary to uphold the First Amendment right to receive information.
Without it, students will lose access to a wide array of materials and information in their classes that they need to help them develop their critical thinking skills and ultimately to support their constitutionally protected rights to speak and participate in our democracy.
But the state argues they can control curriculum as a form of government speech, and the First Amendment cannot limit what they can or can't say.
Here the parties agree, as did the district court, that the speech Arkansas's law regulates, public school teaching, is government speech.
However, Broadjack counters that it's not about what the government chooses to include in curriculum, but whether or not they are removing material based on ideology or racism. At one point, the judges ask if the law is a ban or broad instruction.
Section 16 operates as a ban in that it directs the Secretary of Education to remove materials from a curriculum, which to me is the same as banning them from the curriculum, saying these materials we believe constitute prohibited indoctrination, you cannot have them.
To close, the state urged reversal, arguing no laws or rights were violated.
Our law is not a ban of teaching critical race theory. It is a prohibition on indoctrinating students in critical race theory, compelling them to adopt, affirm, or profess certain ideas.
Covering news where you live, Kayla Davis, 5 News.
We are still awaiting a decision from the federal court on if that pause will remain in place. Tonight, 2 Fort Smith parents are facing charges after police say their child tested positive for THC. Kelly and Roy Casey are accused of endangering the welfare of a minor. Court documents show that back in February, Kelly Casey allegedly told police she found her child was lethargic and bleeding from his nose and took him to the hospital. Those documents also show that hospital staff determined the child had acute respiratory failure and secondary THC poisoning due to overdosing on the substance. Both have pleaded not guilty. Two people in Benton County are facing death by delivery charges after a fatal overdose this month. Gage Hill and Jamie Walker are both being held on million-dollar bonds. Investigators say Adam Hensley was found dead from a fentanyl overdose. Police say texts from the victim's phone show Hensley bought fentanyl from Hill and was found dead the day after. Chief Deputy Prosecutor for Benton County, Josh Robinson, says the county is working to curb the federal epidemic right here at home.
It's not worth the risk of having fentanyl, sharing fentanyl, certainly using it, selling it, that in Arkansas in general and in Benton County in particular, it's just not worth the risk. It's not a good business decision. We want it out of our community because it's killing our kids and it's killing parents of kids.
Robinson says they will review all the evidence before making any decision on whether or not to file formal charges. Both Hill and Walker are set to appear in court in late May. Tonight, students and staff at Florida State University continue to mourn in the aftermath of yesterday's shooting. This evening, there was a vigil for the victims. 2 people were killed and 6 others were injured. Katie Wise is in Tallahassee, where we're hearing from one of the survivors.
Madison Askins is lucky to be alive after her encounter with the gunman.
The minute I heard the shots, I took off running, as did my friend. Unfortunately, I tripped and fell, and when I was trying to get back up, he shot me in the rear end.
That's when Askins said she played dead to save her life.
So I released all the muscles in my body. I closed my eyes, I held my breath, I did everything I could to look like I was dead.
This video appears to show the alleged gunman opening fire as people ran for their lives.
2 people were killed and 5 wounded before the officers then injured the suspect.
Within 3 to 5 minutes, the situation was over. But the officers had already responded, already neutralized the threat.
Friday evening, a candlelight vigil capped a somber day on campus.
It's the kind of tragedy that shouldn't happen. Not here, not anywhere. We are heartbroken.
Still grieving, students and others returned to retrieve their belongings they left behind during the chaos.
It was horrible what everybody on campus had to go through. No student should ever have to go through that.
Tonight, a man who the White House admittedly was mistakenly deported to El Salvador last month met briefly last night with a U.S. Senator. Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen returned to Washington late today after securing a meeting with Abrigo Garcia near the Salvadorian jail where he's imprisoned. The Justice Department has acknowledged Garcia was deported by mistake after a prior court order prohibited him being sent to El Salvador, a nation he fled about 15 years ago.
Depriving Kilmar of his constitutional rights is a threat to everybody who resides in America. He had not heard that. I believe that gave him additional strength.
Is an illegal alien, MS-13 gang member, and foreign terrorist.
Meanwhile, attorneys representing other foreign nationals have alerted judges that more possible deportees are being readied from a Texas detention facility, even as the courts continue to review how much due process these foreign nationals should receive before being sent to the prison in El Salvador. Back here at home, the Washington County Quorum Court is adding another $500,000 to the construction budget for the new Emergency Operations Center. The multi-million-dollar facility was approved back in 2023, meant to improve the county's response to disasters. Everything is supposed to be finished up by this fall.